How's it going, folks? Welcome back. Um, Time to deal with some research methods. This should, if you're a social scientist or a want to be social scientist, generally this is the chapter you want to hate. But I'm going to make the argument that this is the chapter that you really need to understand the most because research methods, how we collect data, it greatly impacts on how confident we are in what we ultimately are going to say at the end of our research. So, as you know, research methods are standard rules that social scientists follow in trying to establish a causal relationship between social elements. We have quantitative and qualitative methods. Quantitative methods seek to obtain information about the social world that is in or can be converted into numeric form. Statistics, great form of quantitative methods. Qualitative methods attempt to collect information about the social world that cannot be readily converted to numeric form, even though you might, in the end, convert it to numeric form. As this really illustrates, there are different ways to study social phenomenon. For example, if you wanted to study poverty, you could do a quantitative analysis by picking a neighborhood, getting the census data, and seeing how much money the average household makes. You could then compare that to the federal poverty line to determine how many people are in poverty. On the other hand, that might not give you the best picture just by looking at the numbers. The numbers tend to hide things. And that might encourage you to move past them and start to get into the qualitative aspects of a study. If you just look at the numbers, you might exclude certain people from your study. Yet you might be able to learn something interesting about social life by taking account for those people, by going out, interviewing those people. And as a result, many studies include both quantitative and qualitative methods. That's one of the false distinctions in the social sciences, is that there is this distinction between quantitative and qualitative methods. Those that do quantitative methods don't do qualitative methods. I believe that some research studies don't have a whole lot done on them, and so you might be interested in starting with a qualitative research, and then as you gain more understanding of what's going on in the field, you can move into a more qualitative data analysis. There are some primary approaches to research. There's the deductive approach to research. This, of course, starts with a theory, develops a hypothesis, makes empirical observations based on that hypothesis, and then analyzes the data collected through the observation to either confirm or reject or modify that original theory. A great example of this would be if you read somewhere that college graduates are likely to have higher income than non-college graduates. So you hypothesize that graduation from college increases salary, you collect some data, and you analyze it to determine whether your theory is correct. It's as simple as that. You start with theory, work towards the real world, and then analyze whether your theory is sound or not. The inductive approach is a bit different. The inductive approach to research starts with empirical observation. So now you're starting with what you're seeing in the real world. That's going to work back towards your creation of the theory. So you're going to observe what's going on out there. And then after you observe it, you're going to be like, oh, I think I know what's happening. And then you're going to hypothesize or come up with a theory that explains the phenomenon that you're examining. This determines if the correlation exists by noticing if a change is observed in two things simultaneously. Does A cause B? Does A cause B cause C? So in this case, you notice that one of your friends is making more money than one of your other friends, even though they have similar jobs. You have no idea why this could be, but you're interested in figuring it out. So you think of all the differences between these two people. They're both females, they're from the same state, they like the same music, they work in the same area, but then you remember that one went to college and the other did not. You look back at their work history to see if there was always a big difference in the amount of income they made. You then see that they were making the same salaries while in high school, but after the first friend graduated from college, she got a huge raise. You can conclude that there is a correlation or a connection between college graduation and salary, at least in this individual. Then, after the fact, you can go out and test that compared to other people that are similar ages, similar backgrounds, and see if having a college degree impacted the amount of money they made. Another distinction within the social sciences, of course, is causality versus correlation. Causality is the idea that a change in one factor results in a corresponding change in another factor. For example, in Chapter 1, you read about the famous college dropouts like Woody Allen and Bill Gates. We might ask ourselves, if people become successful because they go to college, or if they would have been successful whether they went or they didn't go to college. So in order to study success, we would want to determine if college actually caused them to be successful, or if college was simply a coincidence and did not. It was simply a coincidence and did not cause the success. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to all of a sudden flash up to a couple of slides there. So in the end, the cases that we mentioned, Bill Gates and Woody Allen, they lead us to believe that successful people might be successful regardless of whether they finish college or not. But we would have to conduct a more thorough study to make a determination. We could do a quantitative study by looking at SAT scores before college and salaries later in life, or a qualitative study, possibly by talking to individuals who are successful and find out how college did or didn't influence their success. So, does college cause success? Or do they merely seem like they go together? Just because they correlate doesn't mean one is causing the other. You really need to get that straight. Of course, sociologists, they conduct research to try to prove causation. But to prove causation, correlation and time order are established and alternative explanations are ruled out. So in order to prove causation, you have to have a correlation, you have to have an appropriate time order. This happened, then this happened, and you have to rule out alternative explanations. Causation is a stronger assertion than causality is a stronger assertion than correlation. Let's say you've noticed that people who have fender benders, i.e. small car accidents on their way to work, are in a bad mood. But you wonder, did the car accident put them in a bad mood, or were they already in a bad mood which caused them to have a car accident? You see that there's a connection. Bad moods and car accidents are related to each other. There's an association there, but which causes the other? You would want to know which came first, the car accident or the bad mood. If you find that many people who have car accidents were actually already in a bad mood, you might prove causation that being in a bad mood actually causes car accidents. Another example, and it's the one that I usually refer to quite often in class, is the connection between But the correlation, and we can argue whether there's causation or not, between rape and ice cream sales. So if we're looking at the time order, we see that there's a correlation. We know as ice cream is consumed, or as more ice cream is consumed, the number of cases tends to increase. And we see that in the data, but we have to ask ourselves, could there be an alternative cause for what is spiking the number of rapes and spiking the amount of ice cream that we consume? So I want you to pause here for a second, and I want you to think about that. And then once you think you have a good idea of what's going on, then press pause or press play again, and you'll find out the answer. Well, hopefully you've had enough time to think about it. And the answer is heat. Heat is the alternative explanation. As the temperature rises in the summer, people come out, they interact more, they get hot, they tend to get into arguments. The arguments lead to violent acts. So as heat rises, the number of rapes rise, and of course, the amount of ice cream that we eat increases as well, because as we all know, one of at least Americans' favorite treats during the summer months is going out and getting some ice cream. So another thing that we have to do is we have to think about variables. What exactly are we studying? There's the dependent variable and the independent variable. And what you have to think about in reference to variables is this is something that varies. The dependent variable is the outcome that a researcher is trying to explain. A causes B. B is the dependent variable. It's the outcome variable. An independent variable is a measured factor that the researcher believes has a causal impact on the dependent variable. A, in this equation, A causes B. A is the independent variable. B is the dependent variable. And we're postulating that A causes B. So going back to that previous example, car accidents would be the dependent variable. We're trying to explain whether mood changes the outcome, a car accident or no car accident. Therefore, mood is an independent variable. We want to see if mood has a causal impact on the dependent variable. So in our other example, rape is the dependent variable and heat is the independent variable. So something that varies. That's what a variable is. Something that varies. Men versus women. Religious preference. Are you a Catholic? Are you a Jew? Are you a Muslim? Are you a Protestant? Or are you agnostic? Do you have a college degree? Do you not have a college degree? Those are variables. And that's what we study in the social sciences.